Hi there, it's Dave again, and welcome to the second video in our MVC series. What I'd like to do today is take you through, like I promised in the last video, but we ran out of some time. I'd like to take you through the M, the V, and the C of MVC. So what we did last time is we created a little MVC application. We first downloaded the tools we needed, Visual Studio Web Express. We created a little MVC application called MVC Application 1. We changed the title to My Notes. We changed this to Welcome Students. We showed you a little bit about the structure of the application. We went through the content, the controllers, the models, and the view. So basically we went through a lot of the structure of the app and showed you how that worked. And then we ran the application, and we're at this point now. So now let's talk a little bit about the views and the models and the controllers. So the first thing I want to talk about is the controller. As you can see when you go on Home here, or About, you can see Home down at the bottom left. You'll see that's the location of the application localhost with a port beside it. About, it has the same thing, but it has Home and About beside it. Now, the first piece there that says Home is the controller. The About is the action in the controller. And the reason Home doesn't have it is because Home is the default. When we went to our global ASAX last time, you remember that it showed this is the controller, action, and ID is the order that it looks for them in. If nothing is there, it throws in Home and it throws in Index. So that's really the first thing to understand, is that that's what Home is calling. So, and what it's actually doing, let's shut down the app a second here. It's actually going to the controller and calling these two actions. Okay, one is Index and one is About. Now you can see here that when it called the Index one, we had a welcome to MVC. So let's say welcome to My Notes. Okay, the view bag is a property on the page, and it's a dynamic. It allows you to add dynamic properties into here. So this is, as it says, a dynamic and expression will be resolved at one time. So we have viewBag message, and then we went to the index of the Home, and we show the viewBag message on the screen. So that's a very easy way to put something on the screen. So let's go down here and put an H3, and then we're going to copy the viewBag.message, and we're going to call it, or let's just call it food. Okay, and then we're going to go back to the Home controller, and we're going to say viewBag dot, and you'll see it doesn't have anything after the dot to choose from. Dot food equals I don't know, let's say hamburgers. Let's do this. Okay, and then we're going to save that. We're going to run that. And you'll see that it put welcome to My Notes, and it put hamburgers on the screen. So that's a nice way just to add anything you want to the screen anywhere on the screen. So that called the index, and then that returned a view. Now you're probably asking yourself, well, what view did it return? Well, you'll notice down in the views area there is a Home directory. That corresponds with the Home of the Home controller. So anytime a Home controller is called and an action is called under it, it needs to be under the Home directory, a corresponding named directory, and then you'll see your associated views. Now there's different, the views can be of many different kinds. But in this case, the index will return the index view, and the about will return the about view. So if we wanted to just add another action to our application, we could go to the home controller and say, let's add another action. We're returning an action result and returning a food action. So in this case, it's saying here, not all code paths return a value. Remember that it wants an action result. Well, the view is of that type, so we can return the view. Now that should satisfy that. So now let's right click on that and let's say add view. So you can see here I have quite a few choices. I can go to the view, which I don't have, and if I try it will say unable to find a view, or I can add a view. In this case over here I can go to these views. You'll see it puts the view right on the page. So let's create a view here. So we're going to create a food view with our Razor view engine. It's not going to be a strongly typed view yet, and then we'll go down and we'll just say add. Now let's see what happens. So it creates a view with a view bag title of food, and it adds some food in there. So the question is, how do we get to that view? So let's run the application. So there doesn't seem to be anything on the screen to get to that view. But as you know, under the About, if I want to go to the About under the Home Controller, I can hit Home Controller. So this is my Remember Your Routing engine. It's going to route to the Home Controller, and it's going to route to the About. You notice that you don't need a .aspx on here if you're familiar with web forms development or other types of ASP development. So home and about. So you're probably thinking to yourself, well, there's a food action in here. So there's my food action and my food view. So you can see that's very powerful. You can basically have hundreds of different views, and just by simply slashing home/view, you can take yourself to them. Okay, so now we've talked about the controllers a little bit. Now let's talk about, well, before I get there, let me just show you how we can add another controller. So let's do this first. Let's add a note controller. Okay, again, we have different templates, but we'll just use an empty template for now. Let's add that controller. And so here's my new note controller. You can see that its namespace is my MVC applications .controller. So my MVC application in the control area. So the namespace, the easiest way to think of what a namespace is it's an area where everything is kept. You know, when you use technologies, DLLs and references, they have namespaces, and you have namespaces in your app, and you can separate your app by namespaces. But we won't get into that too heavy. Now you can see that what it created is a note controller derived from the main controller class. And if I just put my mouse on there, you'll see it's system.web.mvc controller. So that's its namespace, system.web.mvc, and you can see we have it up here. If we take that away, oops, let me shut down the application. If we take that away, it's going to have a problem. It doesn't know where to find it. But Visual Studio 10 has a nice feature where you can right click and say resolve, and it will try and figure out what namespaces that it knows under that controller. Now if it sees many, it'll give you choices. So there are namespaces back. So let's just build the application. You can see build succeeded down here. I like, as I make changes, I like to throw a build out of the app. So this is our new view, our note controller view. Let's create a quick view for the index here. Okay. And view bag index, we'll say it's our note controller index. Let's quickly run this and see if we can get to it. Okay, we're going to go note controller. Now index is the default, so I don't have to type index in, but I can click on index there. One quick thing we might want to notice is if I put a little breakpoint, now a breakpoint, I can click on it. A breakpoint is a way of stopping the application at a point, so it breaks it at a certain point, so I can debug things. So let me now run the application again. And note controller index. Shut down the app a sec. Oh, did I break it in the right spot? You can see that it stops right there and ready to turn the view, just to prove to you that that's working. So I'm actually going to end the video right now, because we like to keep them short, and I will show you the models next. Thank you, and see you in a bit.